I'm Kerry Irish. I've been teaching history, American history, here at George Fox for about 28 years. I first began my academic career at George Fox as a student in 1982, but that was not my first attempt at getting a college degree. My first attempt was a failure. Right out of high school in 1973, I decided to go to Oregon State University. I'd been reading about the football team and the football program at Oregon State University for many years as a junior high kid and high school kid. And in those days, Oregon State was a pretty good football program, and I decided I wanted to play Pac-8 football. And so I went to Oregon State University and enrolled in classes and went to classes and tried to do the reading and fell asleep doing the reading. But still, I went to class, but eventually found out that I wasn't going to make the football team at Oregon State University. Since my entire motivation for being a college student was to play football, my academic career was cut relatively short as I gave that up. And then I went to work for my dad for a number of years. I became a Christian during that period of time. And near the end of the 1970s, I decided that perhaps God had something in store for me that didn't involve working for my dad most of my life. And so I decided I had to go back to college and get a college degree, and perhaps I would become a pastor, or perhaps I would teach New Testament or Old Testament. But whatever it was, I thought I would have a full-time Christian ministry. So in 1982, I did that. I came to George Fox University and I spent 3 years here. And this time, motivation being completely different, I was able to do what I set out to do. I think my little lesson here that I didn't learn until even later than this was that motivation is pretty much everything when you decide to take on a big task like college. And so I'm hoping that each of you who are listening to this understand your own motivation, because that will help you to persevere and achieve your goals. Now, the other thing I decided I had to do was to get really good grades at George Fox, because I knew I'd need to go to grad school. And so my B- average in high school was going to have to improve dramatically. And to be honest with you, I didn't know if I could do that. So I prayed, not on a daily basis, but I prayed often that God would give me wisdom so that I could persevere in my college studies, do what I believed He had called me to do. Long story short, I was able to get the grades that I needed to do, and eventually decided to go to the University of Washington, not to become a pastor or to teach Bible, but while I was here at Fox, I had two really fine mentors in the history department, and I decided after watching them and talking to them that one could have a full-time ministry and teach history as opposed to being a pastor. And I thought, well, perhaps I'm more cut out for that. So I went to the University of Washington and I completed the Master's of Arts in teaching there, and then the PhD. And when I was nearly finished with the PhD, my wife, who was putting me through school at the time, her business, her company, moved her back to Portland. So we moved back to Portland, and I was finishing my work in the PhD program. So I went out to George Fox, which of course is not very far from Portland, and asked Ralph Beebe if he could use me teaching as a grad student, and he said absolutely. And so I began my teaching career as an unpaid assistant to Ralph. I think it was about 1992 or so. And then from that point on, when Ralph retired, George Fox had a search for that position, national search. They didn't just give me the job, but I did get the job, and I've been teaching history at George Fox ever since. Well, this video we're producing is an introduction to me. I will explain how the course works in another video at a different time. But I want you to know that you'll always be able to talk to me through email. We'll have some organized chats and such. But just because this is not an in-person class, I don't want you to feel like you don't have a real professor. So I wish you well. I pray God's blessing upon you, and we'll be virtually seeing each other here pretty soon.